welcome Professor Emeritus Ralph Brown.
Thank you, Rand. Thank you for the nice introduction. I'm going to talk about A Tale of Two Cities, Sioux Falls and Sioux City. This is based on an article I published in 2004. That's 15 years ago for you, Jerry. It's updated. And when I originally did this study, I got a lot of opportunities to speak in Sioux Falls. No opportunity to speak in Sioux City. But I have nothing against Sioux City. We used to go there and shop quite a bit before Walmart and Amazon. Now, trying to go to Sioux City with the 8 years of road construction is not a lot of fun, particularly if you use a GPS system looking for something. You end up, you don't know where you're at. But anyway, let's get going here. As you can see, Sioux Falls and Sioux City have many similarities. We'll talk about that, but there's some significant differences, particularly over the last 40 or 50 years. There's been significant differences between the two cities. Both were founded in the 1850s. They were meatpacking towns, stockyards. How about stockyards in Sioux City? What do you think of that these days? Closed in 2002. Stockyard in Sioux Falls, closed in 2009. So the very foundation of those two cities is no longer there. Both are located along I-29, and of course Sioux Falls is also I-90. Stockyards and meatpacking were the mainstays of their economy way back when. Sioux Falls, John Morrell, 1909, divorce capital of the United States at one time. From about 1887 to 1909, they had a 3-month residency requirement. And so people would come in from all over the country. Some of them would rent a room, hang up some clothes in the closet, come back 3 months later and get a divorce, a quickie divorce. Also, in most states, the requirements for divorce were adultery. Sioux City had, I think, 6 different reasons for getting a divorce, so it's easy to get a divorce in Sioux Falls, Sioux Falls. So, divorce capital. Of course, Sioux City, Swift and Company, 1884, Little Chicago. Now, if you've ever been to Sioux City and gone to the museum downtown, it is really a nice museum. They have a little movie. They talk about how during the Prohibition, liquor flowed rather freely throughout Sioux City. Prostitution was not unusual, and it was a little crime city, and they called it Little Chicago. And the Little Chicago Deli just shut down a couple years ago, which had been there for many years. You all know Charles Dickens. 10th grade, we read The Tale of Two Cities. I don't remember much about it. I think two cities were Paris and London, but okay, let's look at some quick facts. Look at the population, most recent. Sioux Falls, 181,000. Sioux City, 82,000. Hispanic in Sioux City, of course, is much larger proportion of the population, foreign-born as well. Median age is about the same. The high school educated, 92% roughly in Sioux City, or Sioux Falls, 84% in Sioux City. Bachelor's degree. About a third in Sioux Falls have a bachelor's degree. In Sioux City, about 20%. Median household income in Sioux Falls, of course, is about 20% higher than in Sioux City. Participation rate, that's percent of the working age population is either employed or looking for work. Almost 75% in Sioux Falls, about 2/3 or a little over 2/3 in Sioux City. Poverty rate is lower in Sioux Falls. Median gross rent is higher in Sioux Falls. And the median house price, and that number looks really strange, 103,000. You can't buy much of a house for 103,000. Maybe you can Sioux City, I don't know. But at any rate, that's what the census data shows, Sioux Falls and Sioux City. Okay, we're gonna start out with some definitions here. We talk about metropolitan statistical areas. And the MSA is one or more counties that contain a core city of 50,000 or more. And they determine the metropolitan statistical area, which counties are in the area, by commuting patterns. Micropolitan statistical areas are a city with a population of 10,000 and has surrounding counties that may or may not be part of the commuting area. Vermilion, almost forgot what town I'm in. Vermilion is a micropolitan statistical area. Clay County is the county of commuting patterns. South Dakota, Sioux Falls, the MSA includes 4 counties: Minnehaha, Lincoln, Turner, and McCook. Rapid City includes Pennington and Meade County. Sioux City includes 5 counties: 2 of them in Iowa, Woodbury and Plymouth, 2 of them in Nebraska, Dakota and Dixon, and Union County, which of course is South Dakota. So what we're going to look at here first is we're going to look at the population in both Sioux Falls and Sioux City starting in 1900. 1900, Sioux Falls was about 10,000. Sioux City was pretty good size, 33,000. And look at the data by 1930. Sioux Falls had increased to 33,000, and Sioux City was 79,000. Look at 2018, 82,000 in Sioux City. So they're almost the size that they are now back in 1930. And then if you look at year after year, you can see Sioux Falls is increasing to 40,000, 52, 65, 72, 81, 100, 123, 153, and 2018, 181,000. You can see Sioux Falls, or Sioux City, basically was about the same size, like say in 1930 or roughly 1940 as it is today. It peaked in 1960 at 89,000, then decreased, bottoming out at 80,000 in 1990. And, basically, this is a core city now. This is not the metropolitan statistical area. Now we're looking at the MSA population. The red line is Sioux Falls, okay? 1969 is about 120,000. And in 1969, Sioux City, the blue line was roughly 160,000. So Sioux City was larger than Sioux Falls. But by about 1990 is where Sioux Falls began to have a population in the metropolitan statistical area, which is greater than Sioux City. Now you look at the Sioux City numbers are pretty flat. In fact, the growth over that period was %. Sioux Falls went from approximately 120,000 to 270 or something, or a growth of 115%. So, again, significant growth in Sioux Falls, pretty flat, Sioux City. Let's look at employment trends. Now we're looking at Sioux Falls. The 2 top employers are healthcare, hospitals. In fact, adding together, almost 20,000 people are employed in Sanford Health and Avera Health, almost 20,000. You go down the list, and you see Wells Fargo, Citigroup, and First Premier Bank are all in the top 10. And then you, of course, have the school district and Hy-Vee and so forth. But the major employers, in terms of size, are healthcare and financial services. Let's look at Sioux City. Tyson Fresh Meats, Baumgar's Seafood, Triumph Foods. Now you look at Mercy Medical Center and St. Luke's, add them together, they're less than 3,000. So you got 3,000 in healthcare, compared to roughly 20,000 in Sioux Falls. You go down the list, Hy-Vee, about 1,100. I think they're almost 3,000 in Sioux Falls. Of course, much larger population, so not unexpected. Okay, look at employment numbers. Again, we're starting here in 1990. 100, we indexed these, and Sioux Falls has grown roughly by 90%, from 100 to 190. Sioux City basically has grown from 100 to approximately 125 or so, much slower growth in terms of employment. The black line is the U.S. Again, we're indexing these so you can look at the growth over time. And by the way, racial scale, it's a semi-logarithmic scale, which doesn't mean much to most of you, but the point is you can look at the slope of the line, and a steeper slope means a faster growth, and that's why we scale time series data in semi-logarithmic form so you can compare growth rates over time. Okay, manufacturing employment. You can see Sioux City, which is a much smaller city. 45% of the population of Sioux Falls has more people employed in manufacturing than Sioux Falls. Roughly 16,000 or so, peaked at almost 19,000, and Sioux Falls, 14,000. So you can see that obviously Sioux City is much more specialized in manufacturing than is Sioux Falls. In fact, the proportion of people employed in manufacturing in Sioux City is almost 20%, and Sioux Falls is less than 10%. So a much different industrial base in Sioux City and Sioux Falls. Okay, we're going to look, because the bulk of employment in manufacturing in Sioux City is in food manufacturing. Here are companies with over 1,000 employees: Seaboard, Triumph Foods, Tyson Fresh Meats, Wells Enterprises. This is part of the metropolitan statistical area. 999 employees: Curly's Foods, Interbake Foods, Turpac Foods. Interbake, if you go along I-29 in North Sioux City, you can see it often. They're advertising all the time for employees, starting at $17 an hour. Dennis, opening for you, buddy. Then we have going down to smaller size, and then, but look at, there are quite a number of food manufacturing firms in Sioux City. Ag processing, beef products. Now, there's a problem when much of your economic base is employed in manufacturing. And that is, over time, manufacturing has not been a fast growth in employment. In fact, it's been a negative growth. In 1979, in this country, manufacturing employment peaked at 19.4 million. Today, it's 12.8 million. Or there's been a drop of about a third, 34%, in people employed in manufacturing. So we're not manufacturing anything anymore. No. If you look at manufacturing output, it went from 48 to 106. That is, manufacturing output has increased by 121%, while employment has dropped by 34%. What does that indicate, Dennis? Absolutely. Very productive. Manufacturing has been very productive, where we're producing more with fewer, particularly labor inputs. Capital inputs, of course, are key, and technology are key. Causes of job loss. Well, most of us say, well, it's China, they're taking all our jobs and so forth. The studies I've seen indicate that roughly 25% of job loss is due to trade, and about 75% is due to the increases in productivity in the manufacturing sector. In 1953, total employment as a percent of total employment, manufacturing was about a third. By 1979, it's down 20%. Today, it's 8%. Now, we've seen a little uptick here recently in manufacturing, but we're not going to see anything like going back to the old percentages. Sioux City is primarily engaged in goods producing. Now, that's mining, construction, and manufacturing. Those are goods producing industries. And roughly 25% of Sioux City employees are in goods producing industries. Sioux Falls, just roughly over 14%. So there's a big difference, as I've already implied, in terms of the industrial structure of Sioux Falls and Sioux City. In fact, look at Sioux City, or Sioux Falls employment and services. That would be everything but goods producing. Roughly 86%, and in Sioux City, roughly 76%. So there's 10 percentage points difference, roughly, in employment and services. Sioux Falls, 86% of the people employed are employed in services. Health employment as a percent. Now look what's happened to health employment. Steady increases, up to almost 17% of the people employed in Sioux Falls are employed in the healthcare industries. Whereas in Sioux City, roughly 11.5%. So quite a difference there. Again, you remember Avera and Sanford were almost 20,000 people employed. In Sioux City, the two hospitals employed about 3,000 people. 20 versus 3. Finance. Now, finance in both cities have been pretty flat. And in fact, in Sioux Falls, it peaked, I think, employment in roughly 2008 or 9. And as a percentage here, you can see it's roughly 11%. Now, Citigroup is building a new facility, but they're not going to employ the number of people they used to employ, because what's happening in manufacturing technology is also happening in the financial services area. That is, technology is in a sense, substituting for labor. Anything you want to comment on that, Jerry? Jerry was involved in the first bringing Citigroup to Sioux Falls back in 81?
It's interesting that at that time, there was a point where we had 3,200 employees.
Right.
And then we were down.
1,800.
And some people argue that it's gone overseas. Some were overseas, but a lot of us come back.
Yeah.
And by the way, the language.
Yeah, if you ever, well, you've all made a call and somebody can barely understand them. Okay, the employment to population ratio. Now this is taking number of people employed as a percent of the population. In Sioux Falls, it's higher than Sioux City. No big deal there. Unemployment rate, you can see Sioux Falls is always lower than both Sioux City and in the U.S. Again, goods producing tends to be more cyclical. That is, when we go into recession, there are more layoffs in goods producing industries like manufacturing and mining and construction than there are in service industries. Personal income. This is per capita personal income in 2009 dollars. Okay, so it's inflation adjusted. Back in 1969, Sioux City and Sioux Falls were almost the same. In fact, Sioux City was, as you can see, 1969, Sioux City was 2% higher. And then, again, doesn't look like this is still on a racial scale, but definitely Sioux Falls has grown to at a faster rate. And now Sioux Falls has per capita personal income, which is roughly 12% higher than Sioux City. So income is higher. Per capita personal income in 2017 was $52,000 in the U.S., Iowa, $47,000, Sioux City, roughly $47,000. Okay. Woodbury County, 42, Plymouth, 57, Dakota, that's Nebraska, 39,000, Dixon County, 44,000. What county am I missing? 96,000. That's pretty amazing. You know, I was looking at the per capita income of the highest per capita income by county in the United States. I told you this once before. Do you remember? Teton County, Wyoming. Jackson Hole. 2.1 million per capita personal income. Wow. Okay. South Dakota, we're going to do the same thing for South Dakota. Per capita personal income, roughly 48,000. Sioux Falls, 55,000. Minnehaha, 53,000. Lincoln County, which of course is a southern edge of Sioux Falls and runs all the way to Beersford. Most of the population, I suspect, is in the Sioux Falls part. 64,000. Turner, 60,000. And McCook, 48,000. These smaller counties tend to be ag-oriented, so the numbers can be volatile from one year to the next. Okay, just for your interest, I thought, well, let's do cost of living index. How much does it cost to live in Sioux Falls versus Sioux City? They call it the regional price parity. You know, they can't make it easy. They have to put some kind of fancy name on it. Okay, the U.S. is 100. In Sioux Falls, the overall cost of living is 92% of the U.S. average. In Sioux City, it's 88%. For the state of South Dakota, the overall is 88%. So we have a lower, but again, that includes rural, non-rural, MSAs, micropolitan areas. For goods, not much difference between the two. And again, you know, every city of any size has big box stores and things of that sort. But here's the big difference. The rent index, and that's the way they measure cost of living as an equivalent rent index, is 80% of the U.S. average in Sioux Falls. And in Sioux City, it's 66%. Other services, roughly the same, 93 versus 92. And typically, in lower wage areas, you tend to have service, you know, like hiring a plumber in Manhattan is probably a different cost than hiring a plumber in Vermillion, South Dakota, though I haven't noticed it. Real per capita personal income in Sioux Falls, this is adjusted for this cost of living index, is roughly 55,000. Sioux City, 47,000, 48,000. Okay, so what are the difference? State income tax. South Dakota, no. Sioux City, Iowa, of course, yes. Interstates, both are on I-29, but Sioux Falls is on I-90 as well. Rivers, Big Sioux, Missouri. I understand there's still barge traffic out of Sioux City. Sioux Falls has no such thing. Climate, this is only for gardeners. Zone 4 versus Zone 5. Industrial structure. Sioux City or Sioux Falls is primarily service, and Sioux City is primarily manufacturing. Colleges and technical schools. Both have colleges, both have technical schools. I think there are 2 colleges, and well, they got all these other colleges. I won't go into that. But the point is, both have several colleges and each have a technical school. Airports. Both have airports. Of course, one has, I think, one airline that serves it, and the other one has multiple airlines. I don't think that's a causal factor. That's caused by the fact that Sioux Falls is so much larger than Sioux City. Denny Sanford. Again, you know, we're in serious consideration renaming South Dakota Sanford. And, but at any rate, you know, he's been a big contributor in Sioux Falls, there's no question about it. And not so much in Sioux City, to my knowledge. Stockyards. No stockyards left in either. As far as railroads, too, there's no major railroad in Sioux Falls or Sioux City. I double-checked that, and at one time, Milwaukee Road came out to Sioux Falls, but neither have Amtrak or anything of that sort. In conclusion, basic difference in economic structure of the two cities. Sioux Falls has moved from an industrial city based primarily on manufacturing, particularly food, to a modern service-producing city. And of course, healthcare is the big thing, and financial services have been important, though they've kind of leveled out in terms of importance. Sioux City has remained a city which is heavily dependent on manufacturing, particularly food manufacturing. Manufacturing is not bad. I'm not saying that, you know, that's a bad thing. It's just not employment creating in the long run. Okay, questions? George?
Yeah, is there a short list of why the medical industry accelerated so fast in Sioux Falls?
We have an expert right here.
You're the reason I don't come to Rotary. Well, I think it's outside of the bounds of typical medicine. I think that's what we're seeing up there. You know, when they talk about those numbers for both Bavaria and Sanford Health, they're talking about research divisions, you know, the genetics, doing the DNA and the genomic mapping and those kind of things. So it's much more than just the traditional healthcare now. That, and they become larger systems with bigger reaches, and their central offices are there. So that would be.
Okay, I could not have said that. Thank you. Glad you were here today in spite of it. Yes, sir, Rand.
Did Sioux Falls make a conscious decision, the leadership of Sioux Falls make a conscious decision to reinvent their economy? I read an article some time ago, and I'm an outsider to South Dakota, so, but when John Morrell went on strike, that Sioux Falls said this isn't gonna work, and let's see what we can do different.
Well, the only thing I can think of is when South Dakota eliminated usury laws in 1980 or so, and Sioux Falls became very aggressive in trying to recruit financial services firms. I think that's kind of what started this whole thing. But then healthcare, of course, came in as actually more important than financial services. But I really don't know the answer to that, whether they, go ahead.
The question I have for you, Ralph, is all this is great. We're in the middle of a Vermilion Now 3 campaign. Why don't you put some Vermilion numbers with it too? And
Yeah.
show us how we compare in Vermilion in terms of per capita household income and poverty income levels and all that. Because I think that would be an interesting story for us to hear too, to see where we're at in relation to these two cities.
Years ago, when I had finished the study, I was asked to do a study, Tale of Two Cities, Vermilion, Brookings.
Well, I don't care about Brookings right now. I'm concerned about Vermilion.
I know, but I mean, Brookings is like a population of 23,000. It probably will pass Aberdeen in the next 10 years, which Aberdeen was the third largest city, and still is, but probably.
Past Aberdeen, or it's past Watertown and Huron, I believe.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah.
Vermilion's now the 12th largest city, we were the 10th when I got here, so, yeah.
Yeah, Vermilion is interesting because its population has been flat for many, many years. That's a new study. Okay, Ted.
I could add something to Tim's comments, because I was personally involved in it. I think the single biggest factor in Sioux Falls growth and development in the last 50 years is the USD Medical School, going to a 4-year program, which 50 years ago, the healthcare industry was about equal among Sioux City, Sioux Falls, and even Yankton in terms of number of specialists and
my original study, I did point that out, and I should have included in the study as well. I think your point is well taken. Why healthcare in Sioux Falls took off, and that's a good point. Thanks.
Ralph, I think also in Sioux Falls, the leadership in Sioux Falls has been there. And I've been fascinated with Sioux Falls. They've been able to get a generational turnover. So frequently in communities, you have a generation that takes the lead, moves the community forward, a new generation comes in, and somehow the leadership skills aren't there. In the case of Sioux Falls, that leadership skill has been there. So you've seen the changeover in leadership that's been really quite phenomenal.
You know, Forward Sioux Falls is
Oh, absolutely.
a big deal. Well, at any rate, we're not through yet, and we'll get to you, Chuck. But I appreciate, we're all kind of talking together. We all have our own experiences. And I can put the data out there, but why, I don't always know. And so I appreciate the feedback we're getting. Chuck?
Your last conclusion about manufacturing not being bad, but just doesn't have the same job employment growth as some other sectors. Does that say anything about the wisdom of the state decision to promote a lot of trade and technical education?
Well, that isn't just manufacturing oriented too. It can be in the financial services and so forth. And definitely the direction that jobs are going, it requires technical skills and such. So I think that's wisdom on part of the state. Fell back there, I don't know your name. You're a new member. You're shaking your head positive. Yeah, right here. Oh, okay, because I know you're a techie.
Sometimes it takes just a little bit of luck. And Citibank's a perfect example, because what happened to them, they were losing money in New York, and then they were going to move out. There were 5 states that they looked at that did not have UA laws, or at least had UA laws that were amenable. And they really wanted to go to St. Louis first, or not St. Louis, Missouri. And Kansas City and St. Louis got into a fight with each other. And so the guy, the vice president, he said, oh, left Missouri and came to South Dakota. And that, as much luck as anything.
Yeah.
It's an interesting little story of how that all took place.
Yeah, you could give a talk on that one time, Jerry. And I could talk about little Chicago.
Put Jerry on the agenda. All right.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Round of applause.